Hi, good morning. My name is Tricia Miller, and I am the manager of global sales and marketing for ACCESS, which is the Alliance of Crop, Soil, and Environmental Science Societies. And I'm going to give a little brief background about what ACCESS is, but then I'm going to get into who we consider our traditional customers are, as Keith brought up, and then what our new assumptions and questions should be to expand that, and what we're learning, what ACCESS and I am learning from practicing defining who our new customers are. So ACCESS, the Alliance of Crop, Soil, and Environmental Science Societies, is a nonprofit management company. We oversee several different nonprofits in various different forms. We have three founding societies: the American Society of Agronomy, the Crop Science Society of America, and Soil Science Society of America. In our publishing field, we also publish for the American Society of Animal Science, the American Meat Science Association, the Plant Management Network, and we have an Agronomic Science Foundation that publishes as well. Our societies have a membership department. We have specialized meetings, annual meetings, 19,000 certified professionals in 6 different certification programs, educational programs, 75 different divisions, sections, and communities, K through 12 resources, and of course our publishing. Right now we're publishing 15 different journals and have 21 available in our digital database. We have about 320 books, practitioner and certification magazines, and the fact that we're publishing our content that is premier, valued by our scientific community, and highly cited doesn't mean that our customers should always remain the same. So this will be the basis of our conversation. Okay, so who are our current customers? Our traditional customer base has always been defined by our members who have options of having their own individual subscriptions or having access through a non-member institutional subscription, those doing research at a higher education academic institution, and for us specifically land-grant universities is what that means. The USDA has a digital desktop that is generally used for all government employees through ARS, the USDA ARS, called Digitop. Ministries of agriculture outside the U.S. who financially support higher education institutions, and large corporations that have a specific agriculture focus. So this has always been who our customer base is. But our current customer base has never changed since the inception of our electronic resource offerings. So how is it that we expect to grow if our customers are always the same? If our content remains the same and just year after year we add a bit more, that's not a good way for our societies to grow. So in 2012, ACCESS created a digital library that gives access to all published content from all of our societies and across all different kinds of content. So our journals, books, magazines, and conference presentation all have now one discoverable database for all the content. So when we look at the academic landscape, there are obvious changes. So we also have to consider, so we also have to consider changing along with the landscape of academia and our corporate research. We just learned from Keith and from our plenary that really only 20% of research and development is happening in the academic landscape right now. So for a smaller society, we haven't been able to keep up with those changes. So what are we going to do about it? So what I have done in the last year or so is asked myself and our publishing department some really fundamental questions, considerations in changing our sales and marketing strategy. So specifically, if our patrons are not doing exact research on what we're publishing, does that still mean that our content isn't valuable to them? What if they're looking for something cross-disciplinary? What if they're looking to increase what their research is combining with? Yesterday in our first plenary, that was specifically something that showed that impact would increase when you're combining different kinds of research together. So our students, our content is a great research and teaching tool. Case studies and historical insight on important issues are valuable not just to researchers, but also to those who are trying to teach content and how it relates to our world and to our environment. We have many customers that offer access to large groups of researchers, but we also know that there are some people left out. So how do we find out who those people are? International opportunities are growing more rapidly than domestic opportunities, although economics can cause significant difficulties with that. And smaller corporations are employing researchers that have previously worked at larger corporations, and why aren't we focusing on that, and why aren't we finding out where they're going? So those are some questions that we're asking about ourselves. So our opportunities actually look, our opportunities actually look really similar to our current customer base, but they're actually really different. So new considerations we're making we're looking at our current customer base and saying, yes, but what else? What are we missing in those fields? So right now we see that we're missing non-PhD and graduate degree granting institutions, so technical colleges, community colleges, places where students are now starting out. In the US government, those who are not part of ARS, for our societies, there are so many different research stations and smaller labs that do not have access to government-sponsored content. Ministries, we focus on ministries of agriculture. That's our focus. That's always been our customer. But what else is there? What are we missing? And then the corporate expansion. The large corporations that are breaking off and creating technology companies and sales companies and consulting companies, things like that. We're not focusing on those at all. So first, our opportunities in the academic realm. Options for higher education are changing and growing, so our sales and marketing strategy should do the same. There is a new trend in students beginning their collegiate careers at community colleges and technical schools, so those 2-year programs to save money. Courses are similar, if not exactly the same, as those at 4-year institutions, and access to scholarly content can spark interest in our really specialized field. According to the Community College Research Center, 82% of students coming into their community college and technical college courses are planning to transfer to 4-year institutions, and 32% of those students plan to get some sort of higher education degree. So why aren't we considering those our customers as well? We are. Next, in the government research field, not all research stations have access to government subscriptions. Right now there are more than 116 separate permanent government labs and research stations that don't have access to institutional subscriptions that the government pays for. That's 116 opportunities for us to have new customers, or customers that have previously worked for ARS and moved to more specialized research, smaller research groups, evolving research. Those are all opportunities for us to find new subscribers and new users and authors for our societies. So internationally, we have been ignoring ministries of agriculture and ministries that focus on economic development because we have been telling ourselves that we're too specific, and that's absolutely not true. So in an international government market, we've been partnering with agents to have focus groups and training sessions to larger ministries, larger government agencies that have overlap with agriculture and economic development in their countries. It's a bit slow going, and as Keith talked about, the time that it takes to qualify these customers is much longer. The time spent creating them as a customer is much longer, but it's absolutely valuable to consider that these government organizations value your content, they have the money to purchase your content, and will sustain your content over a long period of time. Okay, so obviously these new customers, we spend a lot of time qualifying them, answering our questions, finding new channels to sell, but all of these new customers have very different needs. First of all, a lot of these organizations, both the community college and technical colleges, the ministries that are not agricultural focused, the research stations that don't have librarians, they need a bit more training. They need a bit more onboarding, hand-holding to know what content you offer, what does that mean, how does it relate to what they're doing, and specifically if they have evolving research needs, if their grants are changing every few years, you need to really have a staff or agents or consultants that can teach them a bit more about what your content is. So we found we've put a lot more resources into marketing tools, videos that can have translation or subtitles, that we can really continuously tell our new customers why it's important for them to use our content. Semantic tagging, once a customer or a user comes into your digital library or maybe is just using Google Scholar and finds your content and sees they have full access, there's going to be a lot of questions. If they're not specifically focused in research that's in your area, we're doing a lot more on semantic tagging to make sure that they can understand what the content is and make it relatable to other content. So there are a lot of platforms you notice that have related content. It can take them to articles that are similar to make them understand a bit more. Searching options have to be different, and this seems really obvious, but customers who have more or less familiarity with your content need to have really simplified searching options. Taxonomy, topic searches, things of that nature, but then also citation, reference links to the Web of Science. So on both ends, it needs to be very, very easy and basic for those who are just sort of learning about your content, and then also for the higher level researcher that we really want them to cite our content. We need to have the citations readily available and easily linking to Zotero or Mendeley, whatever they're using for their citation software. So on both ends, that has to be a consideration. And then obviously pricing is huge. We know that community colleges, technical colleges, small labs, they don't have the budgets that organizations that have large grants are given. So we have to consider what sort of pricing do we have to change for them. So we have different tiered pricing based on FTE, based on graduate or PhD level programming. So we have different pricing based on who our new customers are. Obviously, you can't sustain a customer if the pricing isn't correct. So our societies are doing things to add content and to add value as well. So our users are looking for closely related interdisciplinary content. Access is doing this by publishing with similar societies. So our main tri-societies, Agronomy, Crops, and Soils, are partnering with the American Society of Animal Science, the American Meat Science Association, the Plant Management Network, and we're also publishing English abstracts from the Chinese Society of Agricultural Engineering. So content that is still highly valuable, partnering together in our digital database to keep users in our database instead of looking elsewhere for related content. We're offering more discovery and access options, and we're helping the librarians see the need for a broader space for their departments. So when we can link agriculture, soil, crops, animal science together, they can see that it's important for more than a single department or just a smaller part of their institution to subscribe to. And we are also adding value through the different features. So being able to add more features at an article level, we know that our users are not coming through our homepage to use content, they're coming through Google. So how do we get them to stay in our digital database? We're looking at, we have added Google Translate options for those who have English that is not their first language. Related articles, we allow them to save content in binders so they don't have to continuously search for content, they can save it. Author contacts and also the topic searches to keep them from moving to going back to Google to have to do their searches over again. So these are a lot of things that our users are asking for and who our new users need. So we're learning a lot from this. This has sort of been like a trial and error of finding new customers and talking to them and defining who our new customers should be and is it going to work. So our society members and publishing activities, where research is being done, like Keith had said, only 20% of research is being done in academia. So that needs to be a huge consideration when looking at who our customer base should be. We have found that only 30% of our authors are members of our societies. So why are we targeting our members and their institutions when we know that there's such a broader base to our authorship, right? Institutions are getting limited grants to access content, and this is something very new. Institutions that are not land grants, we have found, are given grants to give access to content that only lasts a year or 2 years. So we need to be asking more questions about budgets. Financial awards are not sustainable over time, and so finding out if that's happening with these new customers that we're talking to is critical. Obviously, we want our new customers to remain our customers. Users want more collaboration, and teaching tools are being requested all the time. So how can we recreate our content to be more of a teaching tool than just a citation or a reference? So those are things that we're learning and still trying to figure out. So that's our experience at the moment with finding new customers, and we'll move it on to Pat.
Fingers crossed.
Will we? We might move it on to Pat.